Hi, everybody. Scott with you in the record player. We're back for another classic Canadian Monday today. The month of April is World Parkinson's Awareness Month, and I'm thrilled to be joined by a couple of absolute greats in Canadian music who know all too well the impact that Parkinson's can have. It's the first settlers of Echo Beach, the founding members of the iconic Martha and the Muffins. It's Martha Johnson and Mark Gane are with me. Welcome to TRP, guys.
Hi,
Thank you.
Scott.
Nice to be here.
It's good to have you. Let's start with Parkinson's Month, which is something that you obviously become a huge part of when it comes to raising awareness and the working hard to try to find a cure for people that live with this every day. When were you, Martha, diagnosed with Parkinson's?
It's in the year 2000. And it was in the fall. And it started very slowly. And the symptoms were things like a loss of smell and dragging my foot and little things like that. Well, they're not that little.
No. But it started off a little, right? It started off with you just wondering what was wrong, something.
Yeah, my doctor, told my symptoms to my doctor, and she said she should see a neurologist. Right? And I got an appointment, and they diagnose you with no blood test or anything like that. It's just movement uh, to traits that's to tell the neurologist that you have Parkinson's.
Hmm. I mean, you've obviously continued to work consistently, maintained your career and your family, which obviously shows people that when you take care of yourself and you do all the right things, you can certainly live a healthy life with this. Uh, um, and a productive life to the point where you do continue to work. You've had a lot of support along the way from Mark, obviously, but also from a whole lot of other people, which brings us to this new song called "Slow Emotion." It's a fantastic song, first and foremost.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tell me a little bit about the song and where it started.
Well, it started with my neurologist, Dr. Pizzano, who he had talked a lot about putting me together with another patient he had who has Parkinson's, who was a musician, Fabio Dwyer. And finally, we did get together at the Only Cafe on the Danforth, and we talked what we wanted to do musically. And we decided we wanted to write one song that would be an anthemic song to raise awareness of Parkinson's. So Fabio and I went off in our separate ways and each wrote a song. And then we listened to each other's songs, and I put them together as one song. It became Slow Emotion.
It's fantastic. Like I said, it's a great song, but it also features. It's not just a matter of you guys doing a song as musicians, but it also features a whole lot of other people that came along for the ride because they're involved in Parkinson's and have the disease themselves.
Yes, I searched for singers to sing the backup vocals. I wanted a choir sound, and I could only find five people who were willing to do it. So it's kind of risky from their point of view because they don't know if they're going to be good enough and all this stuff. So, but I found five people who worked out really well. I have new friends too.
Well, that's the important thing, and your doctor as well, right? Your doctor appears on the on the song as
Yeah,
well.
he plays keyboard.
I wish I had a doctor that played keyboards.
Well, I think he at some point had to make the choice between becoming a neurologist and a musician, and I think he's still kind of torn between two worlds. But he's a great neurologist, and he's out there traveling worldwide all the time to various conferences where they're studying cutting edge methods to try and put a stop to this or at least slow it down. So I think he's found his right calling, but he is a great musician as well.
This song also comes along with a documentary. It's about a 20-minute documentary piece as well. You guys being musicians and been around and used to performing and doing music videos and that kind of thing. How I mean, obviously, this is very personal. So, how hard was it to sort of allow those cameras into your life and something as personal as this?
It was difficult at first because I hadn't seen myself on on camera for a long time, and I have a lot of visible symptoms now. I was kind of shocked to see how much it showed, and also my voice was quite weak. I was having kind of a bad day the day that we shot my part in the video the documentary. But I still think that I'm not I don't regret doing it because it does show me for who I am, where I'm at, and I think a lot of people with Parkinson's could relate to that, and it's a very positive documentary in the end. I think it's quite emotional, and I do show show my vulnerability, but it comes across as a positive thing.
Well, 100% it does, and I think it was phenomenal that you allowed not just for yourself, but the rest of the people involved in the song got quite into it and quite personal as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's personal for everybody. It's a challenge. We met the challenge.
You guys are no stranger to writing songs that have, strong messages. I mean, you've been doing this your whole career. Women around the world at work kind of became a feminist anthem back in the day. And then on the more controversial side of things, black stations, white stations. I mean, you had radio stations that didn't want to play the song, probably venues that didn't want you to perform the song. Um, uh, as songwriters, is it always the message and the lyrics first that you come up with, and then you build the song around that with the music, or is it the other way around, or is it kind of a mixture of the two?
Mixture. It's different every time.
Yeah, it goes both ways. There'll be, well, for instance, the title "Slow Motion." Martha had this title for years before it fell into the making of the song, and so sometimes things will percolate for years, and we have vast archives of through every format, reel to reel tapes. We have tape cassettes of song ideas, uh, CDs, all sorts of stuff, and we'll go back through them and sometimes go, oh, that's really good. Well, and it could be 20 years old or whatever, but the writing process is different every time. And I think, well, when you and Fabio got together, did you have some of the lyrics already?
No,
or?
we just had the title.
All right, so you were, and then
Yeah,
we kind of worked on the lyrics together.
Yeah, we did.
Right?
We did. But I often just have the lyrics done right away. I like to have the lyrics all done, and then I sort of edit it to get things and to add things.
It's almost impossible to think that anybody nowadays that anybody even had an issue with a song like Black Stations, White Stations. How did you deal back then with that kind of controversy?
Well, it came out of um, being naive. We're a couple of white kids that grew up in the Toronto suburbs, and when we started touring in the States, that's when we first heard about black stations and white stations, because we didn't have that format in Canada. And as people who love music and grew up our age group grew up with Motown and R&B and funk and blues and jazz, the whole gamut. And it just, we were looking at it from this naive point of view, just asking the question, how could this be? How could there be a bin over here with black music and then a bin over there with whatever white music was? And it was really shocking to us. So basically, we were just posing the question, and a number of stations, I guess, in the States saw this as an attack on themselves, but really we were just posing the question and challenging a response because we couldn't understand what was going on. And of course, Michael Jackson blew the whole thing wide open because at the time, I think of Thriller, there was all this big discussion whether Michael Jackson was going to transcend the black stations and get over to the white station. And as you say, it seems ludicrous nowadays that this was even an issue, but back then it was. And I think Billboard, when the reviews of black stations, white stations came out, said this is a song that all of America is talking about. for that little brief moment in time, anyway. And um, it got a lot of play among gay dance clubs. Initially, they were the ones that actually broke it in New York, and then the black dance clubs, and then everybody else. So for two kids from the suburbs, it was a pretty amazing thing to have happen.
Also, it went to number 2 in the Billboard dance charts.
Mm-hmm.
We were beat. We didn't make it to number 1 because Prince put out when what was it? When Doves Cried.
That's
So,
not a bad. That's not a bad thing to lose up to.
Yeah, if you're gonna get beat by somebody,
Right?
it might as well be Prince, right? It wasn't like we didn't get there because of some lame song that you were going, oh my God, really? You know, but it was When Doves Cry. So
it was thrilling going to the clubs in New York and hearing our song, Black Stations, White Stations, come out loud and everybody clapping and dancing and having a great time to it.
Yeah, it was quite thrilling.
Thrilling, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like saying, you know, we had the most views on MTV, but the only person that beat us was Michael Jackson's Thriller or something like that. That's insane. So many great songs throughout the '80s for you guys. We just talked about Women Around the World at Work and Black Stations, White Stations, but I mean, Paint by Number, Heart, Cooling the Medium, Song in My Head. It's been nearly 45 years, which is insane to me, since Echo Beach, which is remarkable. Um, and it's still just as much of an earworm today as it was then. It still means the same to Canada and Canadian music fans today as it does then, if not more. Um, it truly is one of those songs that just kind of, it may not even feel like it's yours anymore. Is that true? I mean, it's just kind of taken on a life of its own.
I think as a songwriter, the minute you release a song, it goes out into the world and you do lose maybe it's not right phrasing it this way, but in a sense you lose control of it. I guess you do. You lose it goes out into the world, and oddly enough, Echo Beach has had legs for 40 some odd years and has gone out and bounced into the universe and come back in all sorts of incredible bits and pieces.
Some of the examples.
Yeah, I do actually, Scott, have a list here if you care to hear it.
Sure, absolutely.
It's quite interesting.
Okay, so among some of the things that Echo Beach has been named after are resorts in Zanzibar and Bali. There's an Irish jumping horse named Echo Beach. The Newport Beach surfing scene in California had a strip of beach called Echo Beach. There's an iris, the flower, named after Echo Beach, a German dub label. There was a gay porno film, an Australian youth hostel, a UK soap opera, an online dystopian game, a short science fiction story called Back to Echo Beach, and also, of course, the Ontario Place venue down in Toronto as well, and several others, but I won't go on. That seems like a lot.
But those, I mean, obviously using the name in some of those cases, but how many of those people have had to get permission from you to use the actual song in with those, or have they?
Most of it, as you may know, titles aren't copyrightable. So in most of those cases, they can use the name, and if they were using the music in some sense, they would have to go to our publisher and label and get permission for that. But generally speaking, most of those things are names that have the song has influenced, and it's become kind of like a cultural meme, really. You know, it's out there, and I think it's fantastic. I could have never dreamed that that would ever happen, and I think, like the Talking Heads song, we go, how did we get here? We it just seems remarkable for a group that never meant to be commercial or was interested in that kind of thing, coming out of the punk new wave scene, that we would ever be here 40 some odd years later talking to you about this and other songs. We're still quite, I think, staggered by it, really.
I remember talking to Ivan from Men Without Hats, and he said when he hears Safety Dance on a commercial or on the radio even, sometimes it doesn't even register. Hey, that's me. That's my song.
Yeah, I can get that for sure.
Just so you know, Mark, Martha is the voice of the band, obviously, and a beautiful voice it is. But my favorite Martha and the Muffins song has always been "Swimming." Just yeah, so yay for the baritones.
I think you've mentioned before that when we were working with Daniel Lanois, he said your voice is an engineer's dream, which I guess meant that when you get close up to the mic and you get a little the effect, which brings out the bass tones, that was going on in that song for sure.
I've always loved that song. I have to ask, just because I've heard so many before we leave, because I've heard so many different stories about this. But I've heard that you hated the name Martha and the Muffins.
You're
I've heard that.
freezing up here.
Are you?
Freezing up.
Oh, am I good?
Yeah, you're freezing. You
Oh,
froze up for just a second there. So
sometimes I freeze up for no reason at all. It's in my everyday,
yeah,
not just in.
blame the internet.
Yeah, I've heard stories that when it came to the name Martha and the Muffins, that you didn't like the name, and that's what caused the change back in the day. I've heard that the record companies didn't like the name. I've heard that you were told that the U.S. market would tag on with M plus M more than Martha and the Muffins. So I've always wanted to know what was the real reasoning behind change that name change back in the day.
Well, basically, it was all my fault because I got tired of being called a muffin. We never liked the name anyway, and it was only meant. We had our first gig, which was at the Ontario College of Art in Toronto, Halloween, the Halloween dance, 1977, and we've been during that summer when we were just getting the band together. Everybody kept bringing in names, and no one else liked the names, and then finally we had to put a name on the poster. And one of the brief members of the band, Dave Clarkson from the Diodes, originally said, "Well, why don't we call it the Muffins? You know, it's kind of like the antithesis of punk, and it's got sort of a ironic stance to it." And we went, "Okay, we'll put that on, and then we'll put it on the poster. We'll put Martha's name in front of it because it sounds good, and then right after we're going to get a cool name like, you know, Voice of the Beehive or you know, Talking Heads or something." And it never happened because we got a little article in the Star, and we thought, well, that's it. We can't change it now. And of course, we could have changed it for a year.
But
almost.
everything would be different then.
Every,
No?
yeah, everything would have been different because when we first went over to England, there was a show there that we never had in North America, a kids show called Muffin the Mule. And we go in and do a BBC interview or something, and they go, "Oh, Muffin the Muffins, oh, Muffin the Mule, do you remember that?" And they get all kind of like nostalgic and teary-eyed about it. And we had no idea what they were talking about, but somehow it seemed to work over there. But the name changed to M. We always said M plus M, but everybody else said M and M. It was my fault. It was like when Coca-Cola brought out that new product like decades ago, and it was a complete PR disaster. The M plus M Martha Muffins thing was a bad transition because when black stations, white stations happened, it was M plus M or M and M, and there was a big disjuncture between those who knew us as Martha and the Muffins and those later on who knew us as M and M or M plus M. And often there was no understanding that this was the same band and the same people essentially. So we used to talk. We'd run into fans. They'd go and we'd say, "Which name do you like better?" And they go, "Martha and the Muffins." They always said Martha and the Muffins. So
still run into people who don't put the two together.
Yeah, it was a bad PR move. So we went back to Martha and the Muffins, and here we are. I'm an old guy now, and I'm still muffin.
You're still a muffin. I think everybody at the time knew. Fans knew. I mean, the Canadian fans especially, they knew. When the first time I heard black stations, gold stations on the radio, and they said M plus M, I was like, "Excuse me." So we all knew. Once again, the new single is from Martha Johnson and Company. It's called Slow Emotion. Sorry, it's a beautiful song to bring awareness to Parkinson's disease and Parkinson's Awareness Month, which is every April. It's available to hear now on all streaming platforms, as well as on your website. You can learn more about Parkinson's disease and how you can be of any assistance at all through donations, volunteering, and just simply for information at www.parkinsons.ca, and of course at marthaandthemuffins.com. Martha and Mark, I really, really appreciate you joining me today in the Record Player. It's been an absolute hoot. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having us, Scott. We enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much.
All the best with the song.
Thank you.
Take care.